It's really, it gets back to the decisions people make on Monday really impacts how the vision that they've cast on Sundays lived out. And, it's so important. Around WIF, we say Monday matters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of that. People make decisions about where they invest their money, where they bank, and all that goes into the kingdom.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to the GrowLeader Podcast, where we grow leaders that grow churches by helping them reach their full potential. So glad you're with us today. If you're brand new, make sure you go to GrowLeader.com for all things GrowLeader. My name is Matt. I'm going to be your tour guide today.
Good.
Is that a good phrase?
I like it. I've used that before,
I like being a podcast tour guide, sitting beside my pastor, Pastor Chris Hodges.
So good to be in this studio again. I was just looking out the window at some prospective students that were walking by.
Yeah.
And they're here checking out Highlands College. We are in the beautiful Highlands College facility, and it's growing. And it's been a fun week as we've had the incoming class. I've been with them all week this week, so I'm kind of energized and excited about it.
What's been your favorite student interaction? Because you met with all of our freshmen that got here, 208. Is that right? 208 freshmen that got here. What's been your favorite interaction so far with them?
You know what? It's the ones that realize that they're in something special. So not all of them, but most of them go, wow, I know there's nothing like this. And they just say, thank you, thank you, thank you. They can sense the uniqueness of this learning environment and the way they're treated. In fact, I just came out of our restaurant, and we had a brunch taking place with all of our juniors, and some of them have never been in a fine dining
That's awesome.
experience in their life, and there they were eating this great meal, and we were teaching them etiquette and part of the character pillars. So every part of it, honestly, Matt, it's just fun. I could just walk through the buildings and just have so much joy in my heart.
Well, we love having students back. Summer's over, and so it feels so good to have them back. And as always, I always want to extend an invitation to all of our listeners at GrowLeader. Come and see the college. We'd love to have you here and host you here to see this place. Now, you hear about our guests today in every episode we've ever done.
That's right.
We've had our friends from the Wesleyan Investment Foundation help making the podcast happen each and every month. But today we actually get to talk to the president of the Wesleyan Investment Foundation.
Yeah, and we're so thrilled to have Norwood Davis here as our guest to talk about not only about the Wesleyan Investment Foundation, but we're also going to talk about what do you do if you want to build a building?
Yeah.
How do you put your finances in order in the church? What's the first step to all those processes? What if you're spending too much money and you don't know how to create enough margin to build buildings? We're going to talk about all these types of things today. But welcome, my friend.
Thank you. So glad to be here, PC, Matt. Just great to be at Highlands today, and just what a beautiful day. Thanks so much for having us.
Norwood's also one of my golfing buddies, so you're pretty smitten with golf.
I am. I took it up later, only about 8 years ago, and
which means you've never beat me yet.
No, but I have gotten obsessed, and it's good for everybody to have a goal. So I got a goal.
There you go. Well, I'm so glad you're here, and we really, as always, we love our relationship with the Wesleyan Investment Foundation because you guys currently, listen to this, everybody, currently have $630 million loaned out to ARC churches alone.
That's awesome.
Yes.
And that just, I can't tell you what that means to me. When banks said no, you guys said yes, and you look for ways to get behind this vision. I want people to know more about WIF, but tell them about you first. Just let people get to know you a little bit.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, grew up humble beginnings, kind of lower middle class, and in South Carolina. Went to college, became an engineer. Went to work for a big utility company. They sent me back to get my MBA. And I was doing that for first, 12 years of my career. And then in my early 30s, had a pretty profound encounter with the living God and called me into ministry quite unexpectedly, and through a local church in Atlanta, 12 Stone Church. And I ended up serving on staff there. Been married 30 years, have a daughter who's expecting our first grandchild.
Let's go.
In September. And our son's getting married at the end of the month. So a lot of things going on.
So when you say you served in the local church, this is what I love about you and what I love about WIF is, you've been in the seat that so many listeners are in right now.
Yes.
Talk about what you did there at the church and even how it's prepared you to do what you're doing now with WIF.
Great, thanks. Yes, so I was the chief financial officer of 12 Stone Church. I oversaw the finances, IT, HR, facilities, marketing, created a lot of those things. When I started, I was a department of one.
Yeah.
And because where the church was, we were one campus, and then
Right.
grew along the way over the years. Was there 17 years and started one campus, and we ended up with 8 at the end of it. And I oversaw a team that ended up doing all that stuff, but built it and really
And-
worked alongside Pastor Kevin and Dan Ryland.
Yeah, and you're a brilliant financial mind. In fact, I was asking you some things before the podcast that I think would be helpful for our listeners just in the areas of finance, because this is one of the areas that you can have all the dreams in the world, but if your money's out of order, or if you don't have enough money, or you're overspending in some areas, I want to break all of that down. Like if you were to go into a church and they said, "Man, you served in this role. Help us, make us better." Where's your first dive? Where do you first dive into to discover the health of a church on a financial basis? Yeah,
Looking at the financial statement, just how much margin do they have? Do they have margin? What does the tithing look like? Is it growing? Is it not growing? Is it stable? How much of the church is participating in supporting the church? What percentage
Right.
of the people that attend? Those kinds of things we're looking at, and just seeing what the health looks like.
Yeah.
We look at the expenses. Are those in order? There's some pretty common metrics when like WIF, we look at thousands of churches. You can get some really kind of key metrics on
So
what
what
a
are
healthy
those?
church.
What are they? Just tell us what they are.
Yeah, so we look, and we like to see a church spend no more than 35 to 40% on its personnel.
Okay.
That would be all in salaries, benefits, employment insurance, all those kinds of things. Typically 15 to 20% max on debt service if they have debt of any kind. Then we love to see churches obviously giving themselves away, and how they are not just
Right.
looking at what they're doing, but how much are they giving outside the church to missions and to expanding the kingdom of heaven.
And so when people start the process with, I guess we should tell people more about the Wesleyan
Yeah.
Investment Foundation, but I want you to talk about the process when they're even getting in the application process. But let's back up for a second.
Yeah.
Most know this because we have been talking about
Right.
this since the beginning of this podcast. But for those who are listening to the podcast for the first time, tell them a little bit about the origin of the Wesleyan Investment Foundation.
Yeah, so founded in 1946 as a church extension loan fund. Simply, we loan money to churches for the acquisition of property, renovations, building, those kinds of projects. And we've been doing it since 1946. And from 1946 to 2003, we did that exclusively in the Wesleyan denomination. But our CEO, Craig Dunn, had a vision that the kingdom of heaven is broad and expansive. And we started lending outside. And today we lend to over 1,400 churches in 42 different denominations, 50 states. And just
awesome.
honored to be able to serve. And churches from, our smallest loan is a $5,000 loan to a rural church in Iowa that needed a new roof, to multi-campus churches all across the country, tens of millions of dollars.
And so a lot of churches also have money on deposit, which obviously
do.
makes it possible for you guys to loan. Talk a little bit about that,
Yeah, so
because we're one of those.
yeah,
by the way.
absolutely, yeah. Church of the Highlands is great, and a lot of ARC churches are involved. But churches, denominations, individuals can actually invest money at WIF. We have a investment product. It's on demand, meaning they can get the money back the next day. It links to the checking account, but we're paying currently 5% on investments over $35,000. But somebody can open up an account for as little as $25.
Right.
And we've got a lot of folks will open up accounts for their kids, their grandkids. It's a great place for emergency savings, long-term savings kinds of goals.
And what I like about it too is because the on the loan side of it, when you pay back the loan, and of course there's interest on that loan.
Yeah.
That interest isn't going to build the biggest buildings downtown.
Right.
You're taking that and giving it to the next church. I mean, so you can even feel good. There's not many places where you feel good about interest on your money when
That's
when you're paying it back in loan form. But the fact that that money has been being taken and given to churches, and of course the money we have on deposit, you guys are giving us an interest rate back, but you're also taking that money and giving it to churches. So on every side, it feels like, this banking strategy that you have for your own church is actually is touching the whole body of Christ, and I love that.
It is, and it's really, it gets back to the decisions people make on Monday really impacts how the vision that they've cast on Sundays lived out. And, it's so important. We around WIF, we say Monday matters. And it's because of that, people make decisions about where they invest their money, where they bank, and all that goes into the kingdom.
So if somebody
WIF.
wanted to either personally or with their church put money on deposit, or they were interested in a loan because they have a project they want to do, what's the process?
Process real easy. Go to wifonline.com, and there's two buttons right there on the homepage. One is invest, one is borrow, and it'll walk you through a process. You can even do it on your phone. We've got a mobile app phone. You don't have to download the app. You can go to a mobile web browser. Walks you through a little process called Open Anywhere, and you can literally open an account in a few minutes on your mobile device.
And we'll link to all of that in the show notes as well. Pastor, so I want to ask you, because when God called you and Miss Tammy to move here and plant Highlands, this did not exist.
Right.
How is from the pastoral standpoint, how is WIF helping church planners now in ways that they haven't had this kind of help before?
Well, what I've watched is even through the real estate crisis of 2008, all the regulations and what's required. I know it's probably important, but man, it's just so tedious. And one of the things you were actually in town talking about with me and my team today was that there's even a growing number of banks that are hostile. I don't know of a better word for it, that are even like hostile toward churches because of our beliefs. And so I think it's just getting harder and harder and harder. And so, we didn't have anything. And so, but you, of course, when you guys help churches, they can't have anything. I mean,
Right.
they have to qualify still. But I would say that you guys are way more generous in what qualifies than the process that maybe the other banks and things put people through.
Yeah, one of the things that we can do that banks can't do is we obviously have underwriting standards where we review the church's financials and those kinds of things, but we're not locked into a strict box, and we can, shape what that looks like. In our loan documents, we don't have covenants that really seek to get into the pulpit or into the boardroom of the church and make decisions for the church.
That's
We really intend to kind of be a fuel to help that pastor reach his vision for that community. And we really like to fuel that, and we can be real flexible in how we even structure the loan.
So we've had so many episodes where you've talked about, hey, pastor, are you under visioning your church?
Right.
Well, you are. I think that's one of the things that you carry most often is to people say, hey, you need to have vision for what you would do if somebody walked up and said, hey, we want to be a part of this. We love vision. When somebody comes with a vision to you, though, we're telling people, hey, you need to have more vision for your city, your building, your church. What are the steps, the best practices they should go through or get ready for before they even start this process with you? What are you telling people when they apply for help?
Yeah, that's great, Matt. I appreciate it. We see a number of churches will come to us, and we don't like to say no. We'll say not yet. And one of the reasons we say not yet the most is because somebody's come in, they really just haven't put their house in order yet.
Now, define that. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, they haven't done basic accounting correctly. Instead of having an expense statement that breaks out where they are actually spending money in the church, they'll have one big bucket that says credit card expenses, and 2/3 of their budget is going through credit card expenses. Well, that's not right.
And if they wanted to get it in order, what do you recommend? Like, what would you tell them? Is there a service they call, or should they hire someone? I mean, I really want to break this down for the churches that are going, I need this, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and a lot of it depends on the size of the church. But if you take a startup church, maybe their budget's $500,000 or less. They've got a network in their community. They can find volunteers that will help them. They can find a good bookkeeper. They can hire somebody amazingly affordable to help them really just do the blocking and tackling. They can download QuickBooks and start putting it in QuickBooks. Just be diligent about it. The things that need to be done in terms of keeping your financial house in order oftentimes are mysteries to people, but they really don't have to be in today's environment with so many online tools. If you're just diligent about it, you can really kind of knock it out.
And we even have you've been very open with our financial breakdown, how we're spending, how we're how we're trying to set up margin, and the margin piece I think is the piece that is, you're more opportunistic than strategic,
which is why we have margin.
right?
Yeah.
The margin allows you getting your house in order,
And to
allows
define
you-
that for those who like, what do you mean by margin? It's picking a percentage of the income of the church that's not going to have a name on it. It's a budget item, but it's not committed yet.
Yeah.
I always say to churches and pastors, margin isn't necessarily savings. It's just money that we don't have to
Right.
spend.
Yeah.
It's margin. And we worked, in fact, we wrote it into the bylaws of our church that we would never budget a year more than 90% of the previous year's income. So we were stepping into every year with 10% margin if the church didn't grow financially. And if it did grow, the margin increased. And today, to God be the glory, we were at about it takes about 64% of what the people give to do our missions, to do our buildings, our salaries, our ministries, all of our programming, everything that we are committed to spend to, which gives us that 36% of money that doesn't have to go somewhere. It always does go somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how we're building buildings now with cash. We borrowed for our first facility, the Grants Mill facility. We had to borrow money for that, but thank God we haven't had to since then. But that's what we're encouraging you pastors to do, is just to figure out ways to create margin. Of course, there's only two ways you can create margin, and that is the income's got to go up and the expenses have to go down.
That's right.
And it sounds so simple, but that's actually, you go to the drawing board, and we still do that as a church, look for ways to cut back, even though we have great margins, because that allows us to say yes to opportunities, to give to missions, to do things that, necessarily weren't in that budget.
Yeah, we did a real similar thing at 12 Stone when I started. When I started, we didn't have that margin built in, but we started it. And, we started just a little bit. A lot of churches say, well, I can't, there's no way I can get 36%. Well, can you get 3%? Can you get 1%? Just add a percent to it every year. You'll just be amazed what happens. John Maxwell says most people overestimate what they can get done in a day and underestimate what they can get done in a year.
That's
and
good.
if you just take time and just be diligent about it, you can really build on it.
So again, you gave me 5 things before the show that you said, if I'm helping a church get prepared to build buildings and to do projects, or even to qualify for a loan at Wesleyan Investment Foundation, this is what I'm telling them. Give us another one.
Yeah. So first one was put things in order. Second is really count the cost.
And what do you mean by that?
Is really saying, okay, what is the next phase that we want to go to? Are we moving from temporary to permanent, or are we expanding a permanent facility, or are we going to launch a new campus? And really being diligent about counting the cost. Scripture tells us that,
Right.
to count the cost of what we're going to do. And so really sitting down and planning and saying, if someone's going to build a campus or a new building, it's a 3 to 5 year process these
Right.
days with the
Permitting.
buying, design, and all that stuff, and construction. You got to sit down and count the cost. And, there's tons of people that would love to help in that process. There's all kinds of service providers that do that. We love to help and walk alongside our churches that are applying for a loan, and we'll work with them to help them understand, how do you count the cost? What are the assumptions you need to make? How many seats do you want?
Right.
How much per square foot do you need per person? How much does it cost per square foot?
Help them understand, for someone who's listening, if they wanted to, if they had a certain income of the church, how much they would qualify for the loan process.
Right. Yeah. So
Is there a ratio?
There is.
that you basically start with?
We do. So we typically look at 3 times trailing 12 months income. So if a church had a budget of revenue of $500,000, they'd qualify for a loan of $1.5 million.
Okay.
And then we'd expect them to put about 20 to 25% down. So that means they need to have savings of $400,000 to $500,000, and they'd have a $2 million project.
Right.
And so then the back into, okay, what can you do for $2 million?
Right.
Well, building costs today are $250 to $300 a square foot. So if you're looking at a $7,000 to $8,000 build, I mean, that's 7,000 to 8,000 square foot building. is kind of what you're looking
That's
at.
very helpful.
So those are the kinds of things that you got to do when you're counting the cost.
Okay, give us another one that you would coach churches on.
Yeah, I'd coach the senior pastor to prepare yourself.
And how do they do that?
Yeah, really prayer, physical, make sure, physical, educate themselves on this process. Get ready for, that 3 to 5 year journey of leading change. Read about how do you lead change.
And I think when you say 3 to 5 years, I can imagine there's a certain person listening going, gosh, 3 to 5 years. You do not want to rush into this process of building something that no longer works for you.
Yeah, and 3 to 5 years doesn't have to be long either if you'll go ahead and start today.
Right,
Just go ahead and start having this conversation with your team, with your church. Start talking to those who might, potentially be generous in the church. Talking to an architect. I mean, some of these things are actually free too. I tell pastors all the time, dreaming's free.
Yeah, right.
I mean, do you have a plan? I mean, you don't have to execute it yet. You don't have to spend the money yet, but sure would be nice to have a drawing that you could pray over, or a building that you are dreaming about, or looking's free. Go find a piece of property. So there are things that people can do right now. I'm constantly surprised at the number that I said, man, this is never going to happen. I said, yeah, but did you go look for property this week? Because looking's free.
Well, and I think that is the Highlands College story. For years, Highlands College is at the Greystone campus. And
Exactly.
you always knew it won't stay here. And then when God gave you a window, it was like, okay, here it is. Let's
Exactly.
go. Let's do
And one
that.
of the things that I would say, even, the GrowLeader Network is such a great network because people want to share their stories and they're so willing. So many people, what I've seen, we get a lot of loan applications, and whether from ARC or GrowLeader, each one of those leaders benefited from somebody pouring into his life.
There you go.
That he loves to pour into the next guy's life. So if find somebody, call up GrowLeader, call up ARC, and they'll give you somebody that's in your position.
That is exactly one of my little trade secrets, so to speak. And that is, every time I'm going to do something that's new for me for the first time, I'm going to go find 3 to 5 people who've already done it and go learn from them. And I encourage you, pastors, we can connect you. We can connect you with some churches.
And I want to say, we still do that. That's what we used to do. We have been learning about an app and the power of an app to engage our congregation.
And we went and found churches.
We're still learning
Exactly.
about how to do it the right way.
Exactly.
And we've traveled together. I know I've watched you do that. On all kinds of things. Just you'll find who's really good at it and get them to coach.
So that's
and
very
teach
good.
you.
So we're going to count the costs. We're going to prepare ourselves. What's another one?
Prepare the team. I
Okay.
think, really working, and, I saw this at 12 Stone. You've seen it here at Church of the Highlands College, but getting the team ready for that journey and making sure that they're ready, they're equipped, they're
And what
see
role
the
could
vision.
what role could a team play? I mean,
They play a huge role.
okay, go talk about it a little bit, because I
Huge
can hear
role.
a pastor saying, okay, but how do I prepare them? What should I talk to them about?
Yeah. Well, you can't lead what you're not doing. And, in churches today, you're leading through teams, whether it's staff team members or volunteer team leaders. And, you can, pastor cast the vision, but there's got to be a team that'll carry the vision.
There you go.
And you got to have people who are ready to carry that vision and understand what it's all about.
And one of the ways that works here is that you will still walk through a room, and if a light's on, why is this light on?
Yeah.
We're
trying to build a building.
Stewardship. But the entire team is carrying the stewardship of
And the
hey, guys,
vision.
We have
Yeah.
a goal. We're trying to accomplish something. If we all do our part, it's going to help us get there
Yeah.
that much
Yeah,
faster.
absolutely.
It's a big deal.
And the vision, share it at lunches, share it in small groups. Just talk about, show your excitement for what's happening. Okay, is there anything else that you would prepare a pastor for if they're listening and saying, well, this whole WIF thing sounds great and building buildings sounds great, but what do I do? What else do you
Last
tell them?
thing is prepare the church.
Okay.
Really start talking about the vision, drawing people in. Just for pastors who have planted a church, it's this very similar kind of process. You start building your core, building out from there, and really preparing the church for what's coming and the change that's ahead. Moving into a new building is a big change, and people have got to be prepared for that.
And the one thing I would add to that too, and I'm sure you would agree, is it's not just the what, but it's also the why. And the more you can talk about, we don't just want another building. We want to save marriages. We want to reach young people. And I love this phrase when I'm sharing vision. Imagine with me this space with thousands and thousands of people who are finding Jesus for the first time, and the ones who are finding freedom from addictions, and you really want people to kind of almost envision this future. And I always say you add two words to the envisioning of every future, and that is it needs to be exciting. In other words, in church, we're going to have a blast doing this, but it also needs to be ennobling, not just exciting, but ennobling. In other words, this matters.
That's great.
This is what heaven counts. This is what we're going to stand before God and be proud of, right? And give it in this eternal, it really matters kind of a viewpoint. So
Absolutely. Oh, you're exactly right. I mean, the why is so important. I mean, you think a typical church attender, they're there because they like your church the way it is. So you got to envision them on the why for the change that's coming, because they're like, well, why do we need to change?
That's so good.
And we do that in step one of the growth track, which is our membership class. I mean, you say we exist for the people that aren't here yet.
Right.
And if you don't like that, traffic's going to be frustrating. We build a new campus, it's going to be frustrating. But if you love that, you'll be excited. So from the jump, we're talking about it.
And the opposite is true too. We're not building a bigger building because you need 2 seats.
Right.
You can only sit in one. I always tell them I'll only need about 5 by 5 to preach.
Right.
I've got that now. So this is not for me.
Right.
This is not for you. This is for the people who are not here yet, the ones that Jesus came and died for and that matter to God. So this is huge,
good.
my
Yeah.
friend.
Thank you. Yeah.
This is huge. We really appreciate our relationship with the Wesleyan Investment Foundation. But as I've said many times to our audience, Matt, we never bring someone to the Grow churches that we don't personally believe in, know them very, very well, and use them ourselves. So we're very, very grateful for the partnership. And I once again want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for loaning $630 million to ARC churches so they can get in buildings and we can reach more people for Jesus. So we are huge fans, and we really appreciate what you guys do. Please give my love to the entire team at the Wesleyan Investment Foundation. So thank you, my friend.
I will. Thank you.
WIF, without a doubt, they love local church, and your history, what you did even before you were the president of WIF, proves that. You still remember what it was like to be in that seat.
Absolutely.
And trying to get a congregation into the calling God had for them. We're so grateful you were here with us today. Don't forget, you can connect with WIF through the show notes today. They're all over our website. They're a massive friend to us, and we're grateful for them. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time on the GrowLeader Podcast. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And we also want to say a big thank you to all of our partners that help make the GrowLeader Podcast happen each and every month. For over 80 years, the Wesleyan Investment Foundation has helped churches with their borrowing and their investing needs. Whether you're dreaming of a new opportunity or seeking wise counsel about resource management, WIF can assist you. You can learn more about them at wifonline.com/growleader. Next is our newest partner, Studio C. Studio C can help you know your people and grow your church. They combine strategy, technology, and communications to maximize church member engagement. You can bridge the engagement gap and transform your church's impact with Studio C. Learn more about them at their website. It's thestudioc.org/growleader.